So to start off our training is Tori Raggett, for those of you who don't know her. I am going to read her bio. She's a wonderful instructor.
It's very long.
It's not. It is pretty long. She's pretty... Okay, Tori Raggett, a Carmel artist herself, received her BA in art history with a concentration in painting from UC Berkeley. After graduation, she studied painting and art history in Florence, Italy for a year. I'd like to do that. She received her MA from San Jose State University with concentrations in painting and art education. In addition to her painting, she has taught adult painting classes for the city of Carmel for the past 24 years. She also teaches art history classes for the OLLI program at California State University at Monterey Bay, as well as for other institutions or groups here on the Central Coast and on San Juan Island, Washington. She has been involved with the docent program for many years at the Monterey Museum of Art, including a docent trainer. I think she's pretty well qualified. She has been in group shows and one-woman shows in California and in Washington. Her paintings are in many private collections. She volunteers for organizations that support the arts in Monterey County and in San Juan Island. We are so very lucky to have Tori Raggett.
Thank you. So today we're going to look at the elements of painting. Some of you who were in the library 2 years ago are going to be familiar with this lecture. There are a few different tweaks. Gail, maybe you were here. I'm not sure, maybe Mary as well. Next Thursday, same time, same place, we're going to do analysis of painting. So that's going to be very interactive with you participating. As well as, so we'll all be learning together how to analyze a painting, because that's very important. So my part of docent training is subject to painting, which is my, specialty or whatever you'd say. I'm a painter and I am a painting teacher and I am an art historian. So, so that's where I spend my time and keep out of the pool halls. So let me start. Okay, to develop a painting, an artist uses visual language called the elements of painting. It's like using notes to make music or words to write literature. In painting, these tools include line, shape, color, space, value, form, dynamics, direction, light, rhythm, pattern, and texture. When we view a painting, some of these elements will be very obvious, some not so much. Painters don't use a fixed number of elements, but each artist uses as many or as few as needed to describe the idea he or she wants to convey. Elements are not static concepts. They evolve through the centuries as artists continue to interpret them with creativity. So it's always a good idea to go back to the elements to figure out new ways of looking at paintings. So we're going to start with a line. A line is a mark that goes somewhere. It can describe an object realistically, or it can be intensely emotional. It can be thick or thin, static or lyrical. It can outline a shape, provide direction, or just be the whole idea itself. This is Jean-Baptiste Corot. This is his Church of the Marseille, around 1850, French. This painting has a vertical format with the lines of the trees and branches in one-point perspective, supporting that unstoppable reach to the sky. The trees, their reflections, and the path create a visual track that moves your eye through the landscape and up to the church. Piet Mondrian, Horizontal Tree, 1912, Dutch. For 4 years, Mondrian worked on abstracting a tree from a very realistic, detailed rendering to a very simplified image of the essence of a fruit tree. From its horizontal thrust and reach, it springs out of the earth and into the air. He distills the tree into a few lines, which, almost magically, describe it completely. Henri Matisse, Pink Nude, 1935, French. Here Matisse uses two very different types of line, a grid, which is geometric and measurable, and the organic lines that describe the female body. Matisse loves the play of line, shapes, colors, and patterns. He makes this piece look spontaneous, as if in the blink of an eye, the piece was conceived and executed. The reality is that he made many studies of this motif before reaching this final composition. Frida Kahlo, self-portrait, 1940, Mexican. Kahlo uses lines here to support a very different idea than Matisse's. These are lines of constriction, pain, and suffering. The subdued palette, the straightforward posture, the dark and light values make it the very opposite of Matisse's relaxed freedom and bliss. Kahlo opens herself emotionally to allow viewers to confront the discomfort and challenges of her complicated life. Shape. There are two basic kinds of shapes in painting. Geometric shapes, such as squares, triangles, and circles, which can be measured, and free-form shapes, which are organic and cannot. In general, free-form shapes are more dynamic and surprising than geometric shapes. In a representational painting, shape informs us about the nature of things. This is Jean-Auguste Ingres, Odalisque, 1814, France. The gorgeous, sensual, curving shape of the female nude, viewed from the back, is a lovely, pleasing, rounded, organic shape. The folds of the drapery curve towards the figure as she exudes a combination of classicism and mild eroticism that certainly captures the viewer's attention. This is Mary Cassatt, Boating Party, around 1900, US and France. A delightful package of curving shapes, drawing the three figures into a lovely overlapping composition. The curve of the sail, the hats, of the man's sash, of the boat, all the curves bringing those three together in a rare intimacy. The water, the boat, the movement, the family. What else is there really? This is Arthur Dove, Snowstorm, 1935, US. These shapes are very strong, turbulent, and threatening. Dove abstracted from nature, and he gives us his concept of the snowstorm with a minimum of detail. Dove's message is in the sharp angles of the shapes, the deep sober value of the tree forms, and the aggressive swirls and swoops of his mark making. If you're outside, it might be a good idea to find shelter. Jim Dine, Heart, south of Naples, 1986, US. Over the course of many years, Dine took the imagery of the heart and made something non-sweet, non-trite, non-commercial, and brand new out of this shop-worn shape. Here he shows us the essence of Naples, dark, dramatic, at times violent, erupting, with both nature and man to blame. It's elemental, untamed, a land with the sea an integral part of its essence, a sea which can take as much as it gives. Color. Color is perceived in three ways. Hue, the actual color of the color, red, green, or blue. Chroma, the intensity of the hue. And value, the lightness or darkness of the hue. Yellow, for example, has the most chroma or intensity, but the lightest value of the primary and secondary colors. There are three primary colors, red, blue, and yellow, which when mixed together produce the secondaries, green, orange, and violet. We describe some colors as warm, reds and oranges, and some are cools, blues and greens. Warm colors tend to come forward in a painting, and cool colors generally recede. Adjacent colors are next to each other on the color wheel and are harmonious and restful in a painting, while complementary colors are opposite each other of the wheel and tend to be demanding and strong. Arbitrary color is the use of non-natural color to describe natural objects. Think violet trees rather than green ones. Painters in the 20th century have used color to convey their emotions to the viewer rather than simply recording visual reality. This is Theodore Rousseau, River Landscape, around 1830, France. An example of natural local color, very much how our eye or a camera would see the scene. The soft greens, never harsh or sharp, the deep shadows, the sky that gives us a sense of space and allows us to breathe. All these characteristics make this a painting that is relaxing to look at. Everything in it is expected, nothing startles us. Like Corot, Rousseau was part of the Barbizon school in France, a group that painted man's relationship to nature in harmonious terms. André Derain, Boats in the Port of Collioure, 1905, France. This painting is an example of arbitrary color, which uses non-natural color to describe landscapes, objects, and figures. A new expression of color developed by the French Fauve artists in the early 20th century. The color comes not from what the eyes see, but what the artist feels as he or she looks at the scene. Ludwig Kirchner, Artist and His Model, 1907, Germany. This combination of strong value contrast with saturated color gives us an uneasy glimpse into the studio of the artist in the foreground and the unhappy model in the background. The scene is filled with tension. The figures are not in sync, the colors are right out of the tube, the stripes leap off the canvas, all of which creates a disturbing atmosphere, which was intended by the artist. And this is Milton Avery, White Rooster, 1947, US. A breath of fresh air, Avery uses landscape to find a sense of peace and well-being. He doesn't allow the presence of man into these landscapes very often. They are more about the poetry of natural forms, the soft colors, and the pleasure, tranquility, and whimsy he often finds in natural settings. Johannes Itten, Window of Colors, 1960. Itten was a color theorist. He was fascinated by the way each color responded to the colors that surrounded it. A color would take on a new meaning if it was placed next to a certain hue, and an entirely different feel next to another color. Artists manipulate how a color comes forward or retreats, whether a certain color is important or has a supporting role, all in the service of the idea the artist has about his or her chosen subject matter. Space. Space in painting is the illusion of three-dimensional depth on a two-dimensional picture plane. Space described in Western painting is developed from the front to the back, creating a deep, natural space. The ability to create this natural-looking illusion of depth on a flat canvas was perfected in the 15th and 16th centuries. Another type of perspective, Eastern perspective, was introduced to Western artists by Japanese woodblock prints, which flooded Europe in the mid-19th century. Eastern perspective is developed vertically, from the bottom of the picture plane, the close objects, to the top of the picture plane, the faraway objects. Space can appear natural in representational paintings, with mountains fading softly in the distance. In abstract paintings, however, colors that have a variety of intensities or values cause areas of the painting to recede, primarily cool, light areas recede, and other parts, primarily warm or dark areas, to come forward. This is Jacob van Ruysdael, Mill at Wick, around 1670, Holland. This is an example of Western perspective, a deep space, placed in the middle of the picture plane, taking your eye back, rather like looking through a window on the world. Perspective, the ability to place objects precisely in space, was perfected in the Renaissance and used from the 15th century onward. This is Katsushika Hokusai, Peasants Leading Oxen, from around 1835, Japan. This is an example of Eastern perspective, which the Western artists began seeing in the mid-19th century. This perspective is based on a vertical format. The objects in the foreground are at the bottom of the picture plane, and the mountain in the background is at the top. This not only creates interest from the bottom to the top, but also flattens the picture plane, which creates an entirely different dynamic from the deep, natural visual space that Western painters were familiar with. Western artists were dazzled by this new way of experiencing space and immediately started using it. Vasily Kandinsky, The Street, 1908, Russia, Germany. And this is an example of the lessons learned by Western artists about the compelling nature of Eastern perspective. We're on the roof of the building in the foreground, and as we move up the street, we end up at the top of the picture plane. This negated the deep space of Western art, and by flattening the picture plane, the scene became much more dynamic. And this is Romer Bearden, Morning Ritual, 1986. This is US. A lovely piece which plays with space in a unique and quirky way. We are hemmed in by the dark foreground buildings, but Bearden creates a little bit of magic with a small slice of sky and space that highlights the small pleasures of nature. Value. Value refers to the relative lightness or darkness of a color, or black, gray, and white, as it describes line, shape, space, and form. Values that have high contrast in a painting, light to dark, create strength and tension, while a painting with little contrast in value generally creates a much calmer mood. This is Caravaggio, his Conversion of St. Paul, around 1600, Italy. Strong light and dark contrast, tension, foreshortening, a demand by this artist that the viewer participate in the painting. The action is right in our laps. Caravaggio wants us to feel the spiritual drama unfold, not only intellectually or spiritually, but in a visceral way as well. So he wants us to feel it in our bodies. This is Georgia O'Keeffe, City Night, 1926, US. Although not a city girl, O'Keeffe manages to capture the intense verticality of the urban environment in New York City. Even as she underscores the enormity of the high-rises that move up and out of the picture plane, she includes the rising moon, which softens the impact of all those buildings by bringing that round, romantic, familiar shape into the relentless vertical thrust of the city. Isn't it interesting to see the moon low in a painting rather than high?
Really
what an
I don't think
impact.
I've ever seen this one. It's interesting.
This is one she did when she was living in New York.
Wow.
This is Alex Katz, Anne, 1988, US. The way to highlight a color or an object, or a person in this case, is to assign her a saturated color or two, surround her with dark gray or black, and stand back. The viewer perceives her in full. Her gesture, her presence, her very personality is sensed. Katz always accomplishes a lot pictorially, with a minimum of fuss.
Is the original also with just one foot that goes?
I don't know. I think it might be, but I'd have to check. Form and volume. Form makes shape three-dimensional. Form gives shapes an individuality, a feeling of softness or sharp edges, of menace or contentment, of strength or weakness. The great American artist Ben Shahn said that, quote, "Form is the visible shape of content," unquote. This is Michelangelo, Creation of Adam, around 1508 to 12, a fresco in Italy. Here Michelangelo creates the volume of the figures by shading the areas of their bodies as the arms, legs, torsos, and heads turn away from the light. This creates the chiaroscuro technique, meaning light and shade, which gives the viewer the realistic illusion of a three-dimensional body or bodies on a two-dimensional surface. Suzanne Valadon, Reclining Nude, 1928, France. Valadon. Here Valadon takes the valuable lessons from her mentor Degas and puts them to good use. She was a superb draftswoman, as you can see from the graceful line outlining the woman's body. To show volume without much shading, she overlaps parts of the figure, pulling some parts forward and pushing other parts back. There is no doubt that this is a lovely, well-rounded woman. Wayne Thiebaud, Cake Window, 1970-76, U.S. Thiebaud not only gives us a sense of volume with his cakes, he also taught us that shadows don't have to be gray, that the shadow can be a color and can have a very active and important role in a painting. He freed shadows from being the afterthought, the overlooked. He makes them essential elements of the composition in their own right. Dynamics. The dynamics of a painting result from the combination of the lines, shapes, and colors. Strong, diagonal, active areas which create tension develop lots of movement in a composition. Conversely, more restful areas, predominantly horizontal, describe tranquility and minor movement. This is Winslow Homer's Breezing Up, around 1880, U.S. This is a day to get out and sail, with plenty of wind to get you where you want to go. You feel the movement of the boat, the slap of the waves on the hull, and the puffs of wind in the sails, and the pleasure of being out in the water with friends in the bright, fresh air. George Bellows, Stag at Sharkey's, 1907, U.S. Here we have two boxers facing each other, fighting for their livelihood and reputation. But there will only be one winner. It's charged emotionally, physically, and by the liberal use of diagonals as a compositional device. The strong value contrast from dark to light and the faces of the frenzied crowd only increase the drama of the fight. Hans Hofmann, Table with Fruit and Coffee Pot, 1936, Germany, U.S. This painting would be defined as a still life, but it's anything but still. The spiral composition keeps your eye moving through the painting. The saturated color and small active shapes keep you on your toes with no rest in sight. Some of you might want to shut the door, tiptoe away, and come back when things have calmed down a little bit. Light. Light in painting can be described in two ways. It can refer to objects being illuminated by the sun outdoors or by an indoor lamp, both of which create light and shadow. In the 20th century, it can mean using a light-colored paint, which creates light from the artist's own materials rather than a specific light source. This is Fra Filippo Lippi. This is Madonna and Child with Angels, around 1465, Italy. Look how Lippi uses soft, diffuse light to give this scene tenderness, domesticity, and timelessness. This is a familiar motif of a mother reveling in the beauty and perfection of her child. But this is clearly no everyday mother and child, and the angels are there to lead us out of the ordinary and into the light of the sublime. And this is Milton Avery, again, Mother and Child, 1944 U.S. This painting is not affected by natural light or even by lamplight. The light in this painting comes from the paint itself, from that beautiful white that moves through the mother. It is a tender and comforting light which accents the bond between mother and child. This mother and child are abstracted. They have simplified shapes and faces. They aren't recognizable. This adds to our enjoyment rather than detracts from it, at least to mine, as it allows us to connect in a personal way with this elemental human relationship. Mary Newcomb, Man and Dog at the Gate, 1973, English. This is an example of light pushed to create a sense of fanciful brilliance at a gateway into a magical garden. Again, the light is not from any of the usual light sources, but from the paint itself. We don't know the story, but we're pretty sure it will be an adventure with a happy ending. Rhythm and pattern. The creation of repetitive shapes, colors, and lines provides movement, excitement, and vitality to a painting, which reinforces the artist's concept. This is Vasily Kandinsky, improvisation number 28, 1912, Russia, Germany. In this truly abstract piece, we are energized by Kandinsky's use of line and pattern to create motion and dynamics. Music, as well as painting, was very close to Kandinsky's heart, and we can see the patterns of lines on which musical notes are written. The color sizzle and the work with its cacophony of sound adds another sensory element to the visual drama. Emily Carr, Forest, Edge and Sky, around 1930, Canada. Going back and forth between abstract and representational imagery, you see how different artists use rhythm and pattern to support their individual ideas. Here Carr is showing us how fast and furiously the forests of the Northwest grow. If you turn around and the forest has moved 6 feet forward, it seems as if it's moved 6 feet forward overnight. It's a living thing. Together, the single trees, which are part of the larger forest, march relentlessly into open space towards the sun. Janet Fish, Orange Bowl and Yellow Apples, 1980, U.S. It's hard to get much more rhythm and pattern than in this Janet Fish painting. The wonderful curves and circles of this very unstill life create a sense of harmony and gracefulness. And the almost casual way she awakens our senses, first visually, followed by the rush of smell, touch, taste, and sound, is an unbelievable feast in every level.
What medium was that?
Oil. Pretty hard to do.
Yeah.
Direction. Direction refers to how the artist keeps the viewer's eye moving through the painting, seeing the focal point first, and then leading the eye throughout the piece so it doesn't get stuck anywhere or wander off the canvas. This is Simone Martini, and the painting is Guiderico da Fogliano, and this is around 1330, Fresco, Italy. Well, this man is clearly going someplace. This fresco is in the Palazzo Pubblico in Siena, and there is a sense that all is well in this duke's little corner of the world. He rides his land, dressed in his finest, making sure that work is being done, crops are being grown and harvested, and families are growing. He's intent on keeping watch every day across his land in order to protect the future for his children. You can tell they haven't quite gotten perspective yet in this. This is John Maron, Lobster Boat, 1938, U.S. Much more prosaic is the direction of this lobster boat. This is not a social activity. This is all business. The lobster boat heads straight out to the horizon line, and if the fisherman can count on his luck and skill, he will be able to fill the boat with full lobster traps, making a living the same way his father and his grandfather did before him. Kenneth Noland, Bend Sinister, 1964, U.S. There's no question that this V-like shape is pointing down. Did the artist intend this to be a play on the word sinister? It certainly indicates a strong downward direction, but the bright red V shape at the top keeps our eye engaged in the playful up and down action. Texture. The application of a tactile quality in a painting can happen in two ways. The texture of an object can be described simply with color and value changes, creating the illusion of a natural object. In the other case, the paint itself actually becomes the texture by layering more and more of it on the surface of the canvas, developing a thick impasto. This creates ridges that catch the light, increasing excitement and energy. This is Sandro Botticelli, The Allegory of Spring, around 1482, Italy. A lovely portrayal of the season of youth and beauty, in which texture plays a subtle but essential role. Notice the delicacy of the fruits, flowers, and leaves, the soft draping of the fabrics, the clear colors, and the attention to detail. It's very balanced with the dark trees above and the dark flower-strewn earth below, creating a delightful contrast to the light figures. They're so ephemeral, they seem to float gracefully just above the ground. Vincent van Gogh, The Garden of Dr. Gachet, 1890, Holland, France. Van Gogh always painted his trees, objects, landscapes, and figures with directional texture. If a tree grew up and out, he would create textural patterns in the paint, moving up and out. If he was painting flowers, he would incise the petals with texture in the direction that they grew. Texture is an integral part of his painting, on a par with color, shape, line, and value. Because he uses texture so emphatically, it always increases the emotional charge of his paintings. And finally, this is William Merritt Chase, Pink Azalea Chinese Vase, around 1900, U.S. This is a calm, simple still life, with none of the hyperactive brushwork of the Van Gogh. Chase was a painter and beloved teacher based on the East Coast. I love the way he depicts so well the hard brightness of the glazed ceramic vase with the feathery softness of the azalea's pale pink petals. So that is a review of elements of painting. So I think what we'll do is take a short break now so that Karen and Gerard can change the tape, and we'll get back here in 5 minutes. If you want to get up and stretch for a second. And this is going to be, I'm using slides, and I expect you all to respond to me, to the slide, to the painting, with the elements that you see in the image. So it's just a little practice thing, just to implant what you might have just heard, or what you hopefully just heard.
This is our test, in other words.
The test, yeah, yeah. I'm a really tough grader. So this is SCU1 on a blue plate, undated, around 1965. What do you see, elements-wise?
Arbitrary color?
Light.
Light,
Shape.
light,
Circular shape.
shape,
Texture.
texture.
I like it.
No liking or disliking. No, we don't want to go there. Softness, yeah, softness.
Soft.
And this is actually real color rather than arbitrary. Because if they were painted blue, that would be arbitrary. That's non-natural color. This is natural color.
It's soft.
Very soft. Yeah, good.
What about shape?
Shape, absolutely. Uh-huh. Yes, lots of round direction, isn't there? Yeah, very good. And look at the way he plays with those whites, creating that difference. And that's a very subtle difference. But he knows how to play that up. Very juicy, wouldn't you say? The paint put on in a very juicy way.
Who was the artist?
S.C. Yuan. Mm-hmm. Good. Oh, did I repeat that okay? Okay. This is Vasily Kandinsky, Romantic Landscape, 1911.
Movement.
Okay.
Movement.
Okay, wait a minute. Diagonal movement. Contrast, good value. Contrast, light to dark.
Direction.
Pardon?
Direction.
Direction, absolutely direction. What else? Powerful.
Yes, the contrast brings power.
Yeah. What else?
Saturated color.
Yes, there's some
That's
beautiful.
one of those things, you looked up and looked down at the,
Yes, you're up high looking down and then up and out.
yeah.
So there's no horizon line in this painting. We're trapped there in that valley, looking down into it and then up and out of it again. And that red-orange up there in the sun, the round sun or whatever it is almost out of the tube.
Yeah.
So.
Would that be called arbitrary color then?
Not necessarily, because suns can be orange. So it would be pushed color, that's what I would say, not arbitrary really. Or what?
Contrast?
Contrast, definitely contrast, yes. Good. This is Joan Mitchell, EC, or here, 1992.
Very active.
Very active, exciting,
Yes,
dynamic, emotional.
yeah.
That one I'm not repeating, thank you very much. What?
Jittery, really, a lot of just,
Jittery,
you got all those angles of movement, it's just.
yeah.
Yeah, it's
Rhythm,
Rhythm.
good. Rhythm pattern, good. Texture, absolutely texture, good. What else? I don't think anybody's mentioned. Color, thank you, color. No, anger is not an element of art, but you could feel angry to you. That's perfectly fine. Joan Mitchell was an American and lived in France as an expatriate. And she used her landscape as a jumping off point for making very, very powerful abstract expressionist work.
Okay, so emotion is not an element.
No. So this is Jacob Lawrence. This is The Migration of the Negro, panel number 3, 1940-41.
Directional?
Absolutely.
Contrast?
Shape, absolutely. Contrast, yep.
Down line, right?
And line, yes. And more subtly,
kind of somber. Yeah, it's
colorful in a somber sort of way.
Some space.
Space developed with all that white sky-like area.
Your symbolism involved, the migration.
Yes,
Oh, the birds are migrating.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Very good.
And this is Jim Dine, the American.
Decide what to wear.
This is called Double Isometric Self-Portrait, 1964. Now, Jim Dine was the one that did the heart south of Naples. He always takes very, very, very ordinary subject matter images and creates paintings of them. So what do you see here?
Color.
Color. Yay. Yeah, what else?
Line.
Line, yep.
Line shape.
Shape, good. It's fun. What's happening with those colors?
They're receding and coming forward.
Yeah, they're moving, they're dynamic. So there's the dynamics of the color. Doesn't it jump for you from one side to the other? And it moves back and forth?
Complement.
Uh-huh, and lots of complements. Yep, and some adjacents as well. So very, very, the more you look at it, the more kind of interesting it gets.
Why would he do two?
Because I think he wants to show off that movement of color. He's a real colorist, so he really wants to get into color dynamics. That's
Say his name again.
Jim Dine, D-I-N-E,
Thanks.
and he's on the sheet. He did the Heart South of Naples. This is J.M.W. Turner. This is Tours Sunset, or Tour, I should say, Sunset, around 1832. He is an English painter, was. What do you see?
Dynamic.
Dynamic.
Transparency.
Transparency. This is a watercolor. Peaceful. That's not an element, but I like it.
Space.
Space. Yeah, space. Perspective isn't an element, but it's, I understand what you're talking about. Yeah, value. Yeah, and it's kind of a mid-range
Yeah, it's all
value.
similar value, very
It's
calm.
not contrasty value.
Right.
It's yeah, very subtle.
Color.
Color, definitely. What else is there?
Direction.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
Texture.
Uh-huh, texture, texture. And it's not something that jumps out at us at first, but as you look at it, you see this paper that he's using is very nubbly. So with the paint over it, it creates a really nice texture.
So is it a watercolor?
Yeah.
Oh.
Really draws it
And this is Caravaggio, The Musicians, 1595-96.
in. Line.
Value, contrast, good. Line, light.
Light, yeah, contrast.
Yes. What else?
Form.
Form and volume, good. What else? A very enclosed space, isn't it? Very enclosed space. Not a deep space, but a shallow space, but an important space because it draws those musicians up to us.
You're right there.
And we're right there.
Could it be somber?
Yep, yep. And a little mysterious.
Okay, yes.
Yeah, but that's not an element. Oh, well. And this is Marc Chagall, The Blue Circus, 1950. So what do you see?
Movement.
Movement,
Color.
like dynamics,
Line.
line,
Color.
color, shape, texture.
Arbitrary color.
Yes, arbitrary color, excellent. Yep. Good. And this is Pete Mondrian, lozenge in red, yellow, blue, 1925. So, line, shape,
Geometric, yeah. it's Strong.
space, light,
Contrast.
color,
Color.
color. Uh-huh.
I want to
Yeah.
say movement.
Yes, there is movement because he makes the colors bounce around, absolutely. And that's dynamics, you know, I mean, the official name. But it can be unofficial as well. Look at the way he manipulates those lines. Some of them are thicker and some of them are thinner. But it's not the kind that, it's not the, and also look at the whites. Do you see the very subtle variation in the white? So, now keep in mind, you've seen pictures of him, I'm sure. He was a slight man, and he dressed in his suit and tie and painted. And this was before he moved to New York during the war. And when he moved to New York, he started listening to jazz music. And the jazz music filled him with joy. And his paintings, while remaining very geometric and very hard edge, started moving a little bit more. So this is before New York, and after New York, it's a little different. So kind of a fascinating person. And this is Pablo Picasso. This is his bullfight, 1934. Dynamic?
Very dynamic.
Absolutely.
Movement.
Mm-hmm.
Color.
Color, line, what else?
Contrast.
Value contrast, light to dark. Yep, shape, absolutely.
Yeah.
What else? There's one more subtle. No, I mean, there could be lots more, but there's, yeah, that's not an element though, remember? What else? As you're looking around, direction, maybe.
The shapes that are created, they're not real shapes.
That's right. And rhythm and pattern is what I'm thinking of. Do you see, as you see in the background, do you see those rectangular shapes? And look at how he reinforces the curved shapes also throughout the composition. So that's rhythm and pattern. It doesn't scream pattern and rhythm at you, but that's what's there. And that makes a big impact on the work. Now this was done during the period of the Spanish Civil War. So all of his images from the decade of that, war are of a very violent nature. This is where the huge image of Guernica comes from, where the Weeping Women series comes from. Oh.
That's creative, that's something new.
Yeah, arbitrary color. Yeah. Good. Okay, this is Giorgio Morandi. This is his still life with vase, 1960, an Italian.
It's like you've got black and white, but they're not high contrast black.
That's correct. There, yeah, very mid-range values. Shape, absolutely. Shape for sure.
Line.
Line. What else? A softness.
This is sort of the
And the what?
rhythm.
Rhythm?
Yeah,
Yes, yeah.
on the shapes.
Right. Yes, and the spaces in a Morandi painting, the spaces between the objects are what's so fascinating. When you see those two cylinders on the right, that black, deep black behind it, you see they're not overlapping, and then you see one overlapping, and then you see one not quite overlapping but not quite. That's the interest. What else do you see that's also soft? Texture, thank you. Texture is what you see. And what else? Again, subtle.
Colors.
Some very subtle colors. What else? That space, that enclosed space. So we're not going back a far distance. It's closed, it's right there in front of us. We have nowhere to look but right at those objects.
Why do you suppose the picture looks so flat?
Because he intended it to.
There's almost an absence of shape.
Yeah. An absence, almost of volume, except in sort of a little bit in the orange cylinder and in the gray one in the foreground. Good. This is Bridget Riley. This is her Hesitate, 1964. She's a Brit. So what do you see here? Dynamics. Yeah, dynamics.
Yeah.
Good.
Values.
Value contrast. Good. Shape. Good.
Space.
Space. Yeah, absolutely. It's coming at us.
And it even moves.
Uh-huh. And it even moves. And,
Restful, is that a?
not restful, no. No.
Direction.
And direction, good. Direction, absolutely. And what else?
Light.
Light, good. Uh-huh.
Rhythm, pattern.
Rhythm pattern, excellent. Yeah, rhythm pattern. All those dots. Good. And Gerhard Richter, Betty, 1988. He's a German painter.
It's a painting?
It's a painting.
Wow.
Yeah. What do you see?
Value.
Value. Good. What else?
Light.
Light. Absolutely. What?
Pattern.
Pattern. Rhythm pattern. Good. Shape. Yep.
That diagonal, that really makes the movement
Yes, yes, yes. Right.
turning.
What else? There's one other important one here. Texture is good. What else?
Enclosed space.
Yeah, enclosed space again, or certainly nebulous space. We don't know anything about that space in back of her. Contrast, good, but not what I'm looking for.
Is it form?
Yes, form and volume. Yes, we see and we can imagine this is the beautiful example of the illusion of 3 dimensions on a 2-dimensional surface. Okay? Good. This is a pastel by Susan Bennerstrom, a Northwest artist. This is her Hiking in Autumn, 1991.
Contrast and movement.
Contrast and movement, dynamics, shape,
Light.
light, absolutely, light and dark.
Did you say those are arbitrary colors?
I'd say again they're pushed colors. Yeah. Push.
By push.
Pushed is before arbitrary. So you have natural color, you have maybe a few more categories, and then you have pushed color, which is color that's taken beyond. If the hills are golden, she's pushing it beyond golden. And then if the hills were, let's say, what could they be? Blue?
Bluish.
Totally.
Blue.
That would be arbitrary. Or if they were painted orange, you know. So that's, these are gradations of color from natural local color to something beyond that.
But don't some of the hills, they look blue because...
Oh, yeah. That's atmosphere. We're not talking about those. That's a naturalistic depiction of the hills in the background, absolutely. But the front coloration is dramatic. And perhaps more dramatic than it would have been. So dramatic color is pushed color.
Okay.
Or shadows are taken to a darker value.
Yes. All of that. Boom. Boom. Catching your attention. And Chuck Close, his self-portrait, 1997. Rhythm pattern, absolutely. What else?
Value.
Values, absolutely. Texture, space, very enclosed. Shape, color, absolutely. And this is what I'd call pushed color. When you see him, he doesn't look quite this pink. But this is a very large painting, or he has painted this in all sorts of different, made prints of it, all sorts of things.
Is he the one that has his hands?
That's right. He's the one that had the very bad stroke in his back, in his spinal cord. So he's in a wheelchair. He's almost, but he was a painter before, and he has his brush that's strapped onto his arm. He can use one arm. And he has a wheelchair that goes up and down in a studio where the paintings move into a rack, and then they come out of the rack. So he's either rising, he can rise in his chair goes up and down as well, and the paintings can go up and down.
These are big paintings.
Yes,
You gotta see 'em.
way big.
Yeah.
And if you're way at the front door of the library and look at this painting, it looks realistic. If you walk up to it on the screen or in the museum, all of the colors and shapes melt. So that's the dynamism of the painting. But it's not in the painting. It happens outside of the painting as you interact with it. So it's a pretty fascinating visual. It's pretty exciting. So.
Would you say that it's an optical illusion?
Yes, it is. It is verging on optical illusion. Yes.
Skillful use of permanent color.
Yes, very. Yeah.
Where's the actual painting?
This one, I don't have that listed, but it's in, it would be in New York at probably MoMA, perhaps. I know he has
seen
some
some
at
of his work in
Metropolitan, Phoenix. He's all over, and he has prints of this as well, all over. Now, one thing I'm not sure anybody mentioned is the line work. Not only the line of, certain elements in the painting, but this is all done in a very rigid grid.
Yeah.
So, and he started out with grids that were horizontal and vertical, and then he moved to grids that were angular. But they're absolutely perfect. He takes a 2-foot Polaroid image of his subject, in this case himself or his friends, and then he grids them up into huge, huge canvases. So, and then he fills in all these lozenge-shaped abstractions into each, following the lightness or darkness of the image. So it's a very long, time-consuming process. So.
Is he the only one that does that? Or are there other?
Oh, I'm sure there are people that do similar things, but he was the one that sort of started this. Yeah, created it. So now what we're going to do, how much time do we have? Oh, good, we have some time. So we're going to go back to the original slides, and I want you to let me know which slides that you might like to hear a little bit more about that we looked at. Yeah, you see them all over. Here we go. Okay, here it is. This is the Heart, south of Naples, by Jim Dine, American painter. So you see the symbols he's stuck in. The heart is both forward and then being overlapped by some of the sea creatures. So he's capturing the essence of Naples, but it doesn't look schlocky, if you know what I mean.
Is that a little house depicted kind of?
I think so.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
It's very unusual.
Yeah. I mean, Naples is, that's the way you picture it. It's got passion and emotion, and Vesuvius is going to blow up, and, the fish are swimming around, and the people are gesticulating, and, it's busy. Okay, so we'll go on. Any questions about this? Other?
Oil, right?
Yes, oil. And this is Derain, French painter. And this is Collier, which is a small town. It's on the Mediterranean, on the west side of the Mediterranean in France, very near the border to Spain.
It's very
So,
passionate.
yeah.
I get passion.
Yeah. It's hot. And they fish there for anchovies, anchois. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful place. And then you're looking across at other areas of eastern areas in France, across the Mediterranean. So arbitrary color,
Yes.
first and foremost. And it's funny because when the Cubism started in 1907, the Fauvists were working from 1905 to 1908 about, but the minute Cubism, Picasso and Braque started their explorations into Cubism, everybody fled back to Paris. So here was this Fauve movement, which was absolutely remarkable. Matisse, Derain, Lemanque, and others. And Derain got back to Paris, got sucked into the Cubist group, and lost his sense of arbitrary color. And the paintings before that and after that are entirely different, and you sort of go, oh, So at least I do. I don't know. Somebody else might do differently. And this is Ludwig Kirchner, the German artist, and his model, 1907.
I don't like
so strange. No, you don't have to like it. You
What
just,
is he wearing? What is he wearing? A robe?
he's wearing a robe, and I don't think there's anything on underneath.
Yeah.
That's an intense.
His brush. No, he's turned around, he's looking at the portrait, and she's saying, oh my God, that doesn't look like me. That's what I think,
That's
anyway.
an intense portrayal of light.
Yeah, very, very, very. And saturated color, absolutely. And that value contrast banging, and
Shadows are so black.
they're so black, yeah. And what activates the painting besides the saturated color, the value contrast? Line does too, but what little element has he left that is a very 20th century idea? White. He left those white edges. And look at between the black and the orange, and between the gold of her leg and the orange and the black back there. Everywhere these flickers of white, which really make it more dynamic in a subtle way.
It almost looks like a collage.
Yes, it does, and it could be a collage, but it isn't.
We get so much in this portrayal of eyes.
Yes, aren't the model's eyes amazing? She's distressed. She's madder than hell, probably. So,
Looks like he might.
yeah, for that,
Yes.
yeah.
I think so.
So it's a very provocative
Very.
painting. Okay, so we'll go to Georgia O'Keeffe. Now this one always interests me. She
You know, it is. It's so strong and striking, but that moon, sun, whatever. in the
Yes,
bottom,
yes.
Softens. It makes
That's
it
right.
peaceful.
Yes, it does. It does.
Reflection.
Yeah.
You see that moon, you go right up to the top.
I know.
That star.
You don't see it until way after the fact.
Great.
But once you see it, it's hard to look away, you know, because boy, when we go visit in New York and we have a family there, I run screaming to the airport to get out of there. I mean, you know, so when I see this with the moon, I'm very happy. I mean, you know, I spend all my time looking up at the water towers, thinking, how am I going to get out of here? I mean, it's exciting, etc. Yeah. Yeah, she kind of makes it quiet. So it's a very, very subtle and wonderful image. But you know why she went to Santa Fe.
Yeah.
And Wayne Thiebaud, the California painter, in his 90s now, well into his 90s, amazing man, teacher and painter.
What's interesting is the shadow of the cakes, so to say, is different from the shadow of the plates, the direction of the light source.
Yes, yeah. They're very flattened. So
Yeah,
all you're
but
seeing,
one is the lights on the side, and one of it's more towards in front of us.
One's coming this way.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, yeah, yeah,
There's two
right, yeah.
Very s-
And that's his choice,
That's
you
his-
know,
yeah, he did
that's
it on-
his,
you can taste it,
he did it on purpose,
Strange.
yes, to make the composition work for
Right.
him.
Right.
And one of the things about Thiebaud is the texture he gets. You know, that absolutely buttery texture. The paint, you can see in the white, the direction of it, and you can see the edges of the brush as he moves them across the image. And that makes it very luscious. He's painting cakes, but he's painting it as if he was using frosting, you know. So it's all together. It's that unity that makes it such a powerful image.
Well, this one and the Giorgio O'Keeffe seem to just get on into your mind and you see them.
Yes, yes, yes,
They're
yeah.
memorable.
Right, they're
They
memorable.
imprint themselves.
Yes, yes, yeah, which is good. That's what you want when you're an artist, to imprint in the eyes and the mind of the viewer. Mary Newcomb, a Brit, just recently died. Man and Dog at the Gate, 1973. And this looks sort of sky-ish, you know, but it is still, it is sky, but it is also, you know, and you can think of light from the sky, but it's also paint. Look at the way the dog glows down here in the lower left with that brilliant white against that, against the gorgeous rust.
Are those like feathers down
And these
below?
are, yeah, look like,
Suppose the dark thing in the sky is.
it looks like a little cloud, a little dark cloud.
It's very.
It's very fanciful,
Well, yeah.
very
I see a
fanciful.
phallic symbol. That's the first thing that jumps on me.
Yeah. Well, that's possible. I never thought of it like
I see
that.
a face and it has a mustache, a little mouth and 2 eyes.
Okay, then we won't go any farther with this. She was a naturalist, and she walked out and she taught math and science in high school, and she lived in Suffolk and Norfolk, both, in England. And she would walk out into the landscape with her little sketch pad, and she would do the most amazing sketches of little animals, of little vegetation. She'd write notes to herself, and then she'd come home and make these magical paintings that are very whimsical, that speak to her interests. And it was, my mind was truly blown when I came across a book of hers 20 years ago in the Henry Museum at UW. And I looked and I thought, oh my gosh, I've never seen anything so amazing. I mean, you know me, everything's always amazing. But
Illustration in a children's book. Like a
yeah, very much like that. Yeah.
What's
Very.
at the bottom of that column on the left?
Well, we're thinking feathers or little animals or something like that,
Why is it light behind the animal?
because she wants our eye to come there, probably. So very arbitrary. She uses arbitrary. She doesn't follow natural visual rules.
It's almost like she put the light in to move your eye.
Yeah, I think definitely. Yeah. Good paintings create good conversation. Okay, Vasily Kandinsky, one of his first wholly abstract paintings, although it looks as if these are still tower structures of churches from the area he lived in Germany, which was Munich, where they have those wonderful churches, Russian Orthodox. So I feel, they're pieces and parts of landscape images taken from his environment.
So a lot of use of primaries next to each other.
That's right. And some mixed, some not so mixed.
Yeah.
And beautiful shapes, and very much kind of that automatic writing, things coming out of his head, his subconscious, and then he interprets them in the image.
I wonder which came first on that painting. Was it the line or the color?
I don't think it probably, neither one came first. I'm sure, I don't think he put all the lines in and then colored it in. But on the other hand, I don't think he put the colors in and then the lines. So I think it was both, doing both at the same time. And there's a lot painted out that we don't even know about, probably. Yeah. And this is Emily Carr. This is oil on paper.
Usually her paintings are a lot of dark green and
Yes, blue.
is this a different phase of her?
No, this would be a study. When she painted on paper, she clomped out into the forest, and she couldn't take, this size canvas. So she took paper which had been gessoed, or usually, I'm not sure about that. And then she would do sketches from the forest on a day, take them back to the studio and work them up into quote unquote canvas paintings, finished paintings. So this is the kind of, and her sketching is just beyond belief remarkable in terms of the emotional language she uses. And Janet Fish, orange bowl and yellow apples. Yeah, somebody sighed. You look tired just looking at this. I mean, you get tired. It's amazing. And what's amazing about it to me is the way she goes from almost photorealistic representation to extremely abstract work as you look at the reflections.
Yes.
So there's this wonderful, wonderful dynamic excitement between the abstract and the realistic.
She uses her shadow.
Oh, I mean, it's
Reflections.
the reflections. I mean, glass plates, please, give me a break. I mean, it's just ridiculously difficult. But she has such amazing technical skill. But she's trying to move that technical skill out of just being technical, which does not make great paintings, into the realm of great paintings.
Yeah, it's beyond, it's not a photograph.
Yeah, it's
She's
not a
made it
photograph, yeah.
Very realistic
Yeah.
and painterly.
She sets up the still life precisely, and then she starts the painting, and then lets go. So, there you go.
Hours and
The
hours.
reflected color makes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And if this were truly only technical, without the reflective abstract qualities, it wouldn't be nearly as interesting. What is interesting about this painting is every time you look at it, you see something else. So, I mean, what's more to like?
Is this an oil or?
Yeah, oil.
Yeah, it looks very watercolory, doesn't
She
it?
does
Yeah.
watercolor work.
Yeah.
Doesn't she?
Yeah, I'm sure she does. I'm not positive about that. Look at the reflections in the fruit of the light
Yeah.
and the shadows. You know, I mean,
On the table.
and on the, oh yeah, those, yeah. But
Her light source is coming from above and the back this way.
yeah, and any way she wants it.
That's a
Through the
different source of light.
branches
Yeah,
and
yeah.
flowers.
Yeah, right.
Those domain.
Okay, so now that's the last one that I'll just go, let's see. Oh, okay, time's up. So I hope to see you all next week for the analysis. Yes?
Do you have a book or two that you might recommend?
On art history?
Well, or anything.
There are lots of great books in this library, in the art section. One that if you need any art history sort of background, a book that I've recommended before is that good one, which is called The Illustrated Mona Lisa. Thank you, The Illustrated Mona Lisa. It is in the library. I bought 2 copies for them. So, and it is it's very fun, it's very informative, it has it's not too long, it's not a big tome like this. It's oversized but thin, and you can get through it and it's just great. That's what I recommend. So I'll see you all next Thursday. We'll do analysis of paintings. Now that you've got all the language for the elements and what's in them, we'll analyze them. Okay?
Thank you.
Okay,
All right.
I'll drop off your